All right, and we're back with the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here on the Pop Culture Cosmos. Want to thank you so much for listening. I want to go ahead and tell everybody that we're going to have to go ahead and bump our coverage of Marvel's Avengers video games to Friday shows. If you get a chance, check out our PCC Multiverse show so we share more thoughts on that. But I know it's a big game, but still, I know there's still a lot of weeding out when it comes to that. Plus, I also want to give one of our sponsors, Retro City Games, some love. 15% off everything if you want to go ahead and head down. Again, it's going through Monday, through Labor Day. So you want to check that out. It is available now, 15% off through the store at our Las Vegas and Henderson locations. Well, if you got a chance to go ahead on HBO Max, you've seen a lot there already, and it's in its early months as far as the streaming service is concerned. But one of the best things that you need to catch is the awesome documentary Class Action Park. You heard about what Josh said earlier in the program about how he loves it, because I turned him on into it, because I spoke so glowingly of it. It is one of the best entertainment experiences of this year. It most likely be in my top 10 somewhere for the year 2020. Could be number one. You never know. But you're going to have to wait until the end of the year for that. But it is Class Action Park. It is one of the best documentaries out there right now. And I have one of the directors out here today with it. Just a great guy indeed. First off, I want to go ahead and give props to Chris Charles Scott, who unfortunately couldn't make it today. But I also have as well right now Seth Porges. Seth, if you could take a look at his bio right now on Facebook Live, you see that not only was he a previous editor with Popular Mechanics, you see what he did episodes of Travels Mysteries at the Museum. I watched that from time to time. He's got the experience, he's got the know-how, and along with Chris Charles Scott, they both created just such a tremendous experience in Class Action Park. And Seth, thank you so much for being part of the program today.
It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So when you hear stuff like that from me and what my co-host Josh has said about your program, and I know a lot of people are sending you love as far as on social media and as far as on email. I mean, how does it feel? How does it make you feel? Because it is, like I checked out Metacritic, it's getting very strong reviews.
Yeah, it's been amazing, especially because we made this movie in sort of the smallest, scrappiest, most independent way possible. We self-produced this film. There was no outside funding. There was no corporate involvement prior to getting on HBO Max. There was nothing. It was just a couple of guys shooting it and trying to tell the story, and seeing the response. You dream of it, you hope for it, you never expect it, and it's kind of surreal to deal with it.
Well, I'll ask you this because it leads to a larger thing, because some of the other best entertainment things I've seen have also come on HBO, including another great documentary, McMillions, which I saw earlier this year. I want to ask you this. HBO has always, and The Vow right now, which is the docuseries going on, HBO and HBO Max have always tried to go ahead and put an emphasis on the documentary. So was it you reaching out to them or them reaching out to you? Because it seems like HBO has a great affinity for quality documentaries.
Our film, we're really lucky because the topic of Action Park is so sticky and exciting that before the movie was finished, we kind of put out a little teaser trailer, and we had a lot of attention. We actually had an amazing feature in the New York Times from then. And so we had a lot of conversations, a lot of different people, but it was very clear that HBO Max and the folks there understood our movie and understood what it was about. And I think it would have been really tempting for some buyers, some distributors, some streamers to really push it in one of two directions. One being, it's just this rock and roll party, everything's fun, let's break back with nothing but like amazing nostalgia. And the other being, it's just sort of an investigative kind of true crime style documentary into these crimes and deaths. And I don't think doing just one or the other is really captures or is fair to the spirit of Action Park, because this is a place that was a site for some people of immense joy and formative experiences, like where they grew up. And then for others, there's a sense of immense tragedy and heartache and pain. And those things live side by side. They coexisted. And what the movie really to us was about is how those things can and do live side by side, especially through nostalgia, especially when you look back at our past and cope with experiences that we're grateful for having, but feel simultaneously we're totally messed up and totally terrible. And HBO Max was, I think, really unique as a platform in understanding that duality and not trying to take us away from that into something that might have been, on the surface at least, a little bit more commercial. And I think that was a really smart decision, because I think that conflict and that confusion is what people are responding to from the movie.
Well, that's something I want to ask you about because you said your film could have very easily been just a 90 minutes of nostalgia. And
Yes,
your film could have been very easily 90 minutes of just investigative reporting.
yes,
But you're the reason why I love it so much is because it provides a unique blend of both, and it does it in the right way, and it does it at the right time. Whether you want to laugh your butt off, which I did at times, whether you just want to go ahead and you just have that look of I cannot believe that was allowed, or you want to go ahead and feel true emotion, like in the latter parts of the film. I won't spoil it for people, but the events there is leading to some real emotional, gut wrenching points in the film. I mean, your documentary, it's just such a great part. And you did something like this before with Action Park earlier, from what I was reading as far as researching. And so I wanted to go ahead. Actually, what intrigued me, because I'm from the West Coast, I'm 51 years old. I would have been very easily, if I had been living on the East Coast, would have been already knowledgeable about it. But I had no clue on Action Park. And I actually, with Johnny Knoxville's Action Point, I really didn't get the connection then. But seeing your teaser trailer got me interested. I went to check your the short out, but I also checked out Defunct Lands point by point. I thought, okay, well, how much can Class Action Park do? Class Action Park goes a full deep dive into why Action Park was so dangerous, but also so entrancing at the same point in time.
yes, and it's about that. You know, if this was just a movie about a dangerous place, people would go, "Well, why do we care? Why would anybody have gone to this death trap?" What made Action Park interesting, what makes Action Park a story worth telling, or what makes Action Park have, you know, reverberations that people I'm seeing are applying to many things in current events, is because there's something about the danger that people found appealing. There's something about it that people found attractive, and I think the movie really needed to recognize how appealing this place was, especially to a young kid. It was something pulled from their wildest fantasies. They could do whatever they wanted. There were
Yeah.
absolutely no rules. There were no rules. And we needed to recognize that that aspect of Action Park is really what is most prominent in sort of the popular culture depictions of it up until now. And the imagination of it is this idea that it was this amazing hedonistic wonderland. And often left to the side is the aftermath, the hangover of that, the dark side. But you can't have a hangover without a party, you know, like we needed to show both. And I think by putting them side by side, our goal was to create a whiplash experience that people aren't used to in movies. We wanted to give people a feeling of utter confusion and discomfort. We wanted to make people laugh and then immediately question their own laughter. And I think that makes both the joy, the pleasure, and the pain stronger for coexisting. And it's also honest and true to what nostalgia is, where we look back at things simultaneously grateful and simultaneously furious about the same thing.
And I'll tell you what, it comes off very strong. Once again, I'm speaking to Seth Porges, who I'm hoping, did I get the Porges right?
You got it right. You got it
okay,
right.
Sweet. All right, okay. I want to make sure because my years working CES and interviewing 25, 30 people at the time, you always got to make sure you get as close to the names right as possible. Seth Porges, along with Chris Charles Scott, they both, right there for you, right on Facebook Live, they have created and done, right now, it's available on HBO Max. It is Class Action Park. You could have easily called it Traction Park, but Class Action Park.
Accident. Okay, so of course there are the nicknames.
Yes.
Can't forget them. There's Accident Park. There was Traction Park. There was Class Action Park. There was Fracture Park. But Class Action Park.
I love Fracture Park.
Fracture Park. I mean, pick your poison. We end up going to Class Action Park. It just aesthetically, having the words Action Park with another word in front of it, I think made it very clear to people who are familiar with Action Park. This is about Action Park. And also aesthetically, I just love that you could take the Action Park logo and just slap the word class in front of it. It just kind of was very seamless and simple.
So this is something, again, you touched on previously and before, but you wanted to go ahead and do, like I was talking about just a few minutes ago, a deep dive into it. And you certainly do that along with Charles. So I want to ask you this. What was the motivation to continue this pursuit of this, I guess, for lack of a better term, magical place that so many people have both hurtful, painful, but pleasant memories of as well?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I made a short on the topic in 2013. I'll give shout out to my collaborators there, Matt and Anthony. And after we put that out, something kind of amazing happened, which is my inbox just for years became inundated with people reaching out to me and sharing their stories, telling me about their experiences at Action Park, and basically saying like, oh, you just hit the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more. And I started collecting these sources, collecting these stories, speaking to people, researching it, not knowing what I was going to end up doing with all of this, but knowing that there's something amazing here and really piecing together the larger story of Action Park. And I had all this information and all these stories and didn't really know what I was going to do with it. And then last year, April of 2019, I was visiting my friend Chris Charles Scott, who lives in Las Vegas, and we were grabbing a drink. And
That's where I'm at right now.
There you go. There you go. So you guys should become friends. He's great. And we were just grabbing a drink at the Cosmo right there. And he was basically like, why haven't you done anything with your Action Park stuff? And I was like, I just need a collaborator. I need somebody who can help me execute on this. And he was basically right then and there. Let's do it. And within 2 months, maybe 6 weeks from then, we were rolling cameras and, off to the races.
And I'll tell you what, it's definitely worth it. Again, it's Class Action Park on HBO Max. It is a deep dive and a descriptive, detailed, just synopsis of the myth, the legend, the aura, and the realities of what has been described as the most dangerous, amusement park ever created.
The only theme is chaos.
Yes.
It's not very fair to call it a theme park. It's not the Wild West, like Knott's or Disneyland or whatever. It's not futuristic. The theme is chaos.
Absolutely. If you could have survived, you've got a story to tell your grandkids when it comes to your time spent at at Action Park. See, I know I want to go ahead and say it all the time, but Action Park, I want to go ahead and tell everybody it wasn't upstate New Jersey. And there's not just the fact that Class Action Park was there, the injuries, the dangers, the stuff going on behind the scenes, the partying, the memories that the not only the people working there have, but also the memories of people that frequented and wanted to go back, and the dangers and the interest and why they wanted to go back is there, but also the effect of the actual Action Park itself on the community, the New Jersey community involved, and the man behind it running Action Park as well. That is really some very great parts of the story that were not told previously, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, some of that stuff came from a stash of secret audio recordings we found with the owner of the park. And I got to tell you, man, like, the woman who gave them to us, she told us she had them, and then it just took months and months and months of digging through her attic until she found them. And they've been sitting in a box since the 90s. And when we got those, just hearing the owner's voice kind of come to life and him speaking in this very candid manner about things like political connections and the worries of the town about his park's expansion and retaliation against him and other people for messing with the wrong people in town. It was just unbelievable just hearing it come to life and knowing that really nobody had heard these things in 30 years.
And because Action Park is what it is, a lot of that is attributed to the owner and the creator of Action Park because of his imagining, and in a lot of ways the ride's imagining as well. But I also want to hear your thoughts on, if you could just tell people why it's not just about Action Park, but the man behind it and the things that he did, both good and bad, in regards to that just accentuates that myth of Action Park even more.
Yeah, it's not even just about that. I mean, to me, the movie is about it's about these childhood experiences we have that we have a hard time grappling with and understanding. All of us look back at some parts of our childhood with some degree of fondness, and all of us look back to some degree of disgust at the things we were put through and the ways we were growing up, especially kids from the 80s. When they were running around really without any parental supervision, getting into trouble, going into extremely dangerous scenarios. If you weren't going to Action Park, you were diving off a cliff, playing in a quarry, running around a factory, getting into fights. Who knows what you were doing, right? Like, it's amazing we don't all have tetanus or are dead. And Action Park, I think, was this hyper distilled version of this latchkey kid 80s upbringing. Within the confines of an amusement park. And that's what made it so interesting, is just the fact that, especially nowadays, people assume amusement parks are tested and safe and, super, super hyper regulated because places like Disneyland and Disney World are. Action Park wasn't like that. And Action Park was a place where you pay an admission price and experience things you could experience nowhere else on the planet. You could do things, you could play on rides, You could get into fights. You could do anything you want, and nobody was going to tell you no. And it's something so strange about that, I think, to people, younger folks especially, who are amazed this place could possibly exist. And then their parents are like, oh, yeah, even if you didn't grow up in Jersey, we were doing similar things wherever we grew up. But about the owner, he is this American archetype. He's Charles Foster Kane. He's P.T. Barnum. He's Rockefeller. He's Trump. He's this big, larger-than-life person who has somewhat of a casual disregard for rules and norms.
Definitely that shows off in the film. And obviously it helps perpetuate all the themes that you got as far as, like you said, chaos. But one of the last things I want to talk to you about is the overall theme, like you said, chaos. But it also represents, like you said, about the visions and the way we were acting and living life in the 80s, because it's a great representation of what life was like in the 80s. And I think it tells a bigger story in that sense. For someone who lived through the 80s, I could tell you that the rules were looser in those days. The regulations were looser in those days.
There's no phone. There was no phones. Like, parents had no way of knowing where their kids were. Like, now they're all have trackers on them effectively. Back then, that wasn't the case. You weren't checking in. You maybe be home by dinner was sort of the idea. And if you weren't home, nobody knew where you were.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, it comes off so well. Again, if you have not checked out Class Action Park, Traction Park, Fracture Park. Yeah, that's the best.
Accident
Park. So many. Grave Pool. I love that. About all the rides, whether it was the Alpine slides, whether it was the waterfalls, whether it was jumping off that, whether it was the water slides of doom, or the motorboats of danger, or the go-karts, or the battle boats. The only thing you didn't show, there's like in the commercial, was the dirt cars with the
dune buggies. This was a big park. There were 75 rides and attractions at its peak. There's a lot we didn't get to. They had at one point this American Gladiators-ish experience. It had nothing to do with the show. In fact, there was legal action taken by the show because they were branding it so closely to the show. But literally, you would joust some jacked up steroidal New Jersey teenager named Turbo or Thunder or something, or like run through this obstacle course. They turned American Gladiators into like an amusement park attraction, effectively. They had a skydiving simulator called the Aerodome, where you put on like a flight suit and you'd hover over a big fan. But what the employees did, every ride had like the way the patrons did it, and then the way the employees did it, that was 10 times more extreme. The employees would take the foam mats that other rides would use and turn them into these like flight suits. And the whole thing was like a building with a donut hole that the fan would blow through. And they would literally fly over the roof through the donut hole. And if they missed that like airstream, they're just toppling over. They're falling.
And you spoke about how the dangers of that. That's just incredible. But you just were speaking about all the injuries that were happening there on a daily basis. I can tell you from my experience here on the West Coast, there used to be near Ascot Raceway at that point in time in Gardena, California, a little go-kart track that I was once running and whatnot. And I could see the injuries of people that were every single day were having when they were not doing what they wanted, what they were supposed to. They were not following the rules. And at times it was chaos and people were seriously injured. Yeah. People actually sliding in under the tracks and the track actually embedding into the legs, and they would come out and the chunk of their leg is gone. And those kind of things you see back then, you don't understand the chaos until now. But people kept coming back. And they wanted the danger, and they wanted the speed, and they wanted action because the governors were turned up and whatnot. Similar to what you saw in Action Park as far as with the go-karts there.
Yeah, everybody. New Jersey. It's not just the 1980s. It's New Jersey in the 1980s. You have these kids who are basically. It becomes an all-day game of one-upsmanship, a game of chicken. If you don't do that, you're a chicken or something worse. And you have to prove it, because otherwise you go back to school and good luck facing whatever you're going to face if you were the kid who wouldn't do it. And so it really became a place where people would test their manhood, test their mettle. Effectively, it is just like in Rebel Without a Cause, where they're playing chicken with the cars. That's what Action Park was.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's just an incredible story indeed. And one last thing I want to ask you before we head on out, and that is I want you to go ahead as pitchman. Your pitchman now to everybody out there that's watching and that's listening all around the world on radio and podcast outlets worldwide. And of course, us right here on Facebook Live and YouTube. And that is this, You got to sell people on why Class Action Park is. It's just got to be a documentary you have to go out of your way to see.
Yeah, I think it sells itself. I mean, it's a documentary about the most dangerous and chaotic amusement park that ever existed. If that doesn't appeal to you, I don't want to be your friend.
Well, it's just amazing. I mean, you watch it and just the varying levels of emotions I said before, from shock, how could they have let this happen, to laughter. I love the parts where you talk about the preventative measures, quote unquote, that they would do in order to find bodies, so to speak. I won't elaborate and go into, because that's almost like, because I was just rolling. And then obviously the emotions that you have later in the film as well, as far as the repercussions are concerned. It's just truly an emotional thrill ride all the way. It is Class Action Park. It's one of the best things that you'll see in 2020. It's on HBO Max. Get it now. Watch it now. Seth Porges, it's just so amazing to have you here. I hope you get a chance to come back at some point in time. You, and also as well, Charles, I just wish you both extreme success with this and your future projects. And I cannot thank you enough. And I'm hoping you'll, again, someday stop by us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos.
You just asked me. It doesn't have to be for a project. You just want to talk about stuff. I'm there.
Oh, sweet. That's awesome indeed. Seth Porges, it's just been so incredible having you here. And I truly appreciate you stopping by the Pop Culture Cosmos.
Thank you.